Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
What have you done?
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
Okay, welcome back, YouTubers that Chosen and Beyond. So today I'm going to be reviewing Season 5, Episode 7, The Upper Room. And also I'm just on a quick vacation right now, so quick traveling, so doing this remotely from another location, but I still want to try to get this video done today for you guys. This episode really draws us into the atmosphere of the upper room. It's basically beginning of the episode, we have Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, and then everything that happens following that. And then at the very end of the episode, we get caught up almost to where Jesus is about to come upstairs, waiting for all the disciples are in the room, just except for Thaddeus and Jesus. So we're getting really close to the flash forwards, being a big no time gap there, just a small gap at the end of this. So that's really cool. But also wanted to mention this episode is really powerful because it echoes John 13. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, also you should wash another's feet. So we break that down. But basically serving, right? The powerful message to serve others. And also how God is, in some of the flashback episodes, as we get a little bit further in the episode, we see the disciples flashing back. And this episode explores how God has been quietly working in the background of each of the disciples' lives, right long before they recognized. So from Mark with his vision, and then also flashbacks of Simon, Thomas, Philip, Little Jane, and Nathaniel as well. So really good. Looking forward to breaking this episode down. Let's break it down. Let's get it.
So episode 7, The Upper Room, part 1. We see here in this first scene, we're back 7th time jump forward to the beginning of the Last Supper where Jesus enters, and we see a young man with him. If you haven't seen the episode, this is a young portrayal of Mark. It's a bit of an artistic inspiration but there was some discussion that Mark did live in Jerusalem around this time, so it's not that far of a stretch. I think it's a really cool tie-in here. So what we do have here is Jesus coming in, and in this episode we're beginning with a deep portrayal of Jesus, and we're going to get into the washing of the feet as he lowers himself into service and reminds us of Matthew 23, the greatest among you will be your servant. So as we move forward, we see Jesus comes in, and the disciples are expecting a servant to come up to help them clean up and wash some of their feet. And so Jesus goes and he picks up the kind of water bowl there and says, "No, I'm going to be the one washing your feet." So this is so reflected in Mark 10, right? Man, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. And so this is a really, I think, big thing here. The disciples all look around and they're not really comfortable with it. And I like what they did here with James, Big James. He's like the first one to settle down and say, you know what, I'm going to just do what the Lord says. I also just think this is really interesting because in another episode, I want to say it was season 4, when he was in Lazarus' house and they were arguing over who would be first, last, and all that, and he was like, I'm happy to be last. I thought that was really funny. We know he's one of the first disciples to, unfortunately, he's one of the first ones to die. So I don't know if they were tying into that, but there was also a tie-in to the first will be last and the last will be first. So there's a lot going on with that, but just at the time, I thought the symbolism I thought was really cool. None of them knows when their time's going to be, right? And they're all just joking, but at the same time, they are trying to learn what Jesus is saying. And for me personally, when I first heard that, I thought, no, it doesn't matter what order you're going to be in, because you could be last and you may totally repent and you may end up first in the line. And he was telling the parable during that time of the vineyard owner who's paying his servants wages, and some person who came first in the day got paid the same amount as the person who came last in the day. And so that parable was about, don't tell God, what to give to whom and so and how much. So it was really, it's God's decision to do that, right? It's the Lord's decision. So I thought it was really cool. And I felt like that tied into that here nicely. From seasons 3 and 4, we saw Big James really step up as one of the disciples and become more aware. And I thought that was really cool. So in the next image here, we get a little bit of scripture. Jesus says, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news and publishes peace and proclaims salvation." So that's a little bit of Isaiah 52. The disciples are soon going to carry on the gospel to the ends of the earth, right? So I think he's foreshadowing that a bit here. So this is really intense. As he's going around the room, Simon Peter's in the back. He gets up at this time and kind of running around, and I think he's like, "I'll take over. Thank you, Rabbi, for starting this. I'm going to take over." And so they get a little bit of an argument, and Jesus says to Simon here, he's like, "You don't understand this now, but you will later." And Simon responds, "You'll never wash my feet." And then he says to him, I thought this was really, really powerful. He says, so that was John 13, right? For the, you do not understand what I'm doing now, but afterwards you will understand. And then Peter responds, "You'll never wash my feet." And he says, "If I am your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also are to wash another's." So that's John 13 as well. But also, I think they added this, he says, "Trust me now more than ever, even if you don't understand, for if I do not wash you, then you will have no share with me, and you cannot be part of his works." So I didn't find that a direct tie-in to scripture on that, but basically he's saying you cannot move forward, right, if you don't. So I thought that was really powerful. Simon Peter drops to his knees and says, "Wash me, of course, and wash my hands too," and a little bit of a joke that kind of goes over the top with it. It's kind of a very opposite response very quickly. So I thought that was cool. And then at this moment, Jesus makes it clear that, how they are carried to his message through service. "As you spread my messages, this is how you are to lead, as servants with humility, in order to love and serve others, friends and enemies alike." He is what he's saying here, just as he's getting up. What is he really saying? He's saying, "I didn't come here for you all to serve me and put me up on a throne. I came here to show you to be in service of others and teach what I taught to you to others, and respond in any way that I would respond." So basically, even to your enemies, you are to do this, right? So it's just so different from what they are taught, they're teaching. This is the path to the new kingdom, right? So be very different from what they're hearing, and this is talking to them. So now, as we wrap that up, that flash forward, now we're back in normal time. We're pretty much at the day of the Passover, where we're setting up the Last Supper table. You have here young Mark. He's had a vision, and he saw three things. He goes to his father. We're going to see him in a minute. He's like, "I saw myself setting this table. I saw my father, my father, talking to two men, and they said to you, 'Our teacher's time is at hand.' And then I saw myself at the well." And so he's telling this to his father. His father's like, "Listen, you're never gonna, your mother goes to the well, you don't go to the well, let's go outside." And kind of walking outside, then he sees that someone has graffitied on his house, and it says Jesus Messiah. Although he is in support of it, he's worried that the Romans are gonna come and maybe interrogate him or something, and he could get possibly arrested. So he's freaking out. And so he tells his son, "Here, go get this, take this jar of water and go, and so we can wash this." And then Mark looks at his father, and he's, "Yeah, that's exactly what I saw in my vision. So yes, absolutely, I'm going to take that," and he runs off. So I thought that was really cool how the son realized it, for the father got all worked up. And this is a beautiful example how God works through us all the time, and we're not even realizing it, and doing things that perhaps we wouldn't necessarily do, right? If we had realized it, he may not have done that. He may have not have ordered his son. He realizes in his angst to get this washed up, he's fulfilled this step that would send his son to the water. So even if he wanted to get mad and reverse the order, he knows he can't. He's got to get it clean either way. So he's, no matter what, it's happened. And I thought that was really cool. So this is really funny. While this is happening, there's a quick scene with James. He's having lunch. He realizes some people are following him. He takes off. He tripped to try to find Peter. Because Big James, Peter, and Simon Z are like the biggest soldiers, the toughest guys. So he goes, he's like, "Where's Peter?" He sees him, he's preaching. He's doing a decent job. He's preaching, I think it was the parable with the servants waiting outside the wedding, and they don't know when the the masters will return, right? And so they have to be ready, be awake. So he's doing his preaching here, and I love it. Every time they point, it's kind of cool. So I captured that really quickly. But so basically, so they go back, and Simon, Peter go back to the house to talk to Jesus, to let him know they want to talk about what's going to happen with Passover. You can see that John is there on the right. And what are we going to do for Passover? Are we going to stay here? They're concerned because Big James thinks they're being followed, so they want to make something happen. And Jesus says, listen, go to the well in the southern part of the city. There you will see a boy going to get water. Follow him to his house. When you see the master of the house, say to him, our teacher's time is at hand. So definitely aligning right to what Mark saw in his vision. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah. So moving forward here, we see Judas runs into his sister, and she says how proud of him she is because he was called to follow Jesus. At first she was not happy when we last saw them. She was very unhappy, but now she's in Jerusalem. She's heard the news. It's Passover. She thinks that Jesus is the Messiah and he is going to put an end to the Romans and bring a new era. But Judas is very sad because he's not sure. So then moving forward here just a bit, we see Simon Peter here with John, and they ask for some directions. They find the closest well in the southern part of the city, and they see the young boy filling up the water. So going forward here, this is the fulfillment of Matthew 26. So it says, they follow him. He says, are you the master of the house? He says, yes. He says, we have a message for you from our rabbi. He says, my teacher's time is at hand. Where is the room where I can keep the Passover with my disciples? We have Mark's father here. He's very stunned, and Mark also mentioned that he saw them preaching with Jesus, so he knows this is true, and this is going to be where Jesus is going to come and use his home for the Passover meal, for the Last Supper. So for this next image here, this is the beginning of a series of flashbacks. Around 7 flashbacks here, I think we get, of the disciples as they're traveling, as they're getting ready for Passover. Portraying them recalling memories. So I thought this was really cool. I'm going to capture as much as I can. So starting with Simon here, he sees blood on the ground near an alley door, and this reminds him of in the past when he was trapped in an alley with some of his brothers in the fourth philosophy, which we know as the Zealots. And so they call it the fourth philosophy because it's outside it's the fourth group, and they're considered an outcast group because they are assassins. But you have the other 3 major religious groups. So here we see Simon with his 2 brothers from the order. They can't get out. They're about to be killed. And Simon says to them, just go. I will defend the door while you go out the other door. And so he's ready. He's ready in this moment to die. And it's really powerful. He runs. He hears some noises. They disappear. He goes out to the other door. And then here we see that his 2 brothers have been killed, and now he's left alone. So I thought that was really, really powerful. The next flashback sequence we get is Nathaniel, and he's walking through the market, and he sees a woman selling a sitar, and she's demoing it. And so he's flashback reminded of when he was studying, and he was struggling a bit in his studies, and he heard a woman singing to the Lord, and it gave him peace. So he's being reminded of that peace. And he also receives a letter at that time from Philip saying that he will come to help. So you can see here is Nathaniel's kind of looking out from his office window and sees the woman playing on the sitar. And so he's just reflecting. It's very beautiful. And he then gets the letter from Philip and he's reading it. And I find these scenes really interesting because it shows the disciples back when God wasn't a big part of their lives. And even though they weren't close to God, God was still working through the others, right, in the background. And I find that really interesting. I thought that was also the same thing with the beginning, right, with the scene with Mark's father, right? Even though they weren't really supporting Messiah at the same time. They were supporting him because they were going to have that room ready for him. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And also sometimes how we try to control things in our lives based on what we think God's plan is, but we may not be able to see that plan around us, right? So I thought that was really cool. A few more images flashback. This one's a really good one. I didn't have time to grab everything, but this one's Andrew and Philip, and they're walking through the streets, and some Romans are coming through with kind of a horse and wagon, and they jump against this wall here to kind of get out of the way. And they're looking at each other thinking, man, you remember the last time we had to get out of the way for Roman soldiers? And oh yeah, it was when we were with John and we were on the road preaching or following John the Baptist preaching. Again, I love when they bring John the Baptist in this. David, the actor, just did a great job. And we also see a couple familiar faces from season 3. The gentleman just to the left of John. Anyway, I think his name is Abner, but there were 2 of them. I don't see the other one here, but definitely recognize the guy on the left. So this is really cool. And so basically, this is Isaiah 40 that John the Baptist is saying, prepare the way, make way for the Lord. But at the same time, the Romans are saying, prepare the way, get out of the way. And they're moving some debris that's in the road because they're trying to make the way for Roman leaders or whatever. And John's like, oh, I'll show you who you need to be making the way for. So I thought that was really cool, really powerful. Really interesting, really good portrayal there. So then we jump forward a little bit further, and then we have in the next flashback, Thomas, and he's remembering, this is a bit emotional, he's remembering when his father is being arrested. And so he sees a clay pot broken on the ground. I just grabbed one image each. I didn't go into all the scenes, but he sees a pot broken on the ground. He remembers when his father was coming to him to explain to him that he had been involved in a fight of some kind and that he might be taken for questioning. Immediately in this scene with Thomas, he sees the broken clay pot broken, and unfortunately things break in our lives and we can't fix them. So I don't know if that was a call to Jeremiah 19, but he knows the pain of being helpless, right? So I think it's just a quiet scene that reminds us sometimes, it's hard. Jesus calls everyone, it doesn't matter. We all have different burdens to bear, to carry. In the next scene, we have Matthew, and he's remembering, he sees another tax collector get spit on, and he's like, oh man, I remember when that happened to me. I remember when I was spit on. And it really impacted him. It was a flashback to his first day being a tax collector. Kind of has this exchange with Gaius, who's his soldier, and he's asking him to help him, but he can't. And he's not really, he helps him, but gives him advice. And this is a big contrast. The rejection, shame, and loneliness are not forgotten, but Jesus has redeemed them. Jesus is going to change everything. I thought this was interesting, but just seeing how much Matthew's life has changed from where he was, right, to where he is now. I thought that was really cool. And Gaius as well, right? And Gaius as well. So this scene here is with little James, and we see the temple choir, and little James is seeing them sing. He's really sad because he thought that was going to be his path to serve God. So I think also that, they're just, as they're getting closer to the Passover dinner, they're all scared. They're all scared for Jesus because he's upset a lot of people, so they don't know what's going to happen. But he was told because of his disability, he would not be able to serve. So he was not able to serve there. But luckily, he decides to go anyway. And on the route to Jerusalem, he runs into these 2 guys. I thought that was funny that he's sleeping alone and they join him. He's at first startled, and then they start a fire for him, and he asks them, are you angels? And Jesus is like, oh, and Thaddeus is like, oh, maybe, I don't know. So I thought that was really cool, showing that. I like that because I felt like them being the first 2 disciples, I felt like Jesus maybe gave them a little bit more insight. They learned they were closer to him in the beginning. And it took a lot more faith, I think, to join early in the ministry. It was, before there were signs, before all the John the Baptist and all those things had happened where Jesus was baptized. So I'm just assuming this is before that. So anyway, so going forward, moved by that, Jesus arrives just on time to help him keep safe on the road. So that was really beautiful. Well, again, I think that also follows the same story, the learning that you don't know how you're going to be serving God. Little James thought he was going to serve God by going to the temple and being part of the temple choir. Instead, he's going to be one of the disciples, which is much better, definitely. So I thought that was cool. And then as the disciples all gather back, they actually are all here except for Thaddeus, right? So he's the last one to show up, and they're waiting for him to bring Jesus there. They're all freaking out just because they've been waiting for a while and they don't know where Jesus is and they don't know where Thaddeus is. And I like it just ends, they're all freaking out, and Simon says, you know what? You can see him just on the right there, stand up with his arms, and don't underestimate that kid. He'll get it done. So don't be worried. And we know, so this was cool because this is the end of the episode, and it pretty much connects us to the beginning, almost, right, of the beginning of the episode where he washes the feet. So we're pretty close. The only thing we've missed is Thaddeus showing up, and then whatever scenes are in between that, and Jesus coming up the stairs with Mark, young Mark. So almost caught up. So I thought that was really cool. So just wrapping up with this episode 7, the Upper Room Part 1 here on The Chosen and Beyond. I think I was pretty clear of the theme of this. We're here to serve, not to be served. And just wrapping up, I did hear a great message from Pastor Paul from the Calvary Church when I was doing some studies. And this always stuck in my head as one of the most coolest examples, I thought, was think about when you go to a fancy restaurant. Maybe you're taking your family, mother, father, to their birthday, and you want that high, you expect that high level of service, and isn't that nice when everything goes smoothly, right? Obviously, they bring you the bread, they bring you the drinks, their food, everything's cleaned up. You don't have to do anything. And of course, it's just so great to be served. It feels so great, but the burden is on those who serve, right? So Jesus is not, in that message that I heard from Pastor Paul, Jesus is not here for everyone to bow down to him and serve him. He's to portray to you that in your heart, you must be like a servant to others. When you see someone that needs help, go and help them. When you see someone who needs to be served, physically, emotionally, spiritually, share the message with them. Whatever it is, be served. Go and do and love them as I have loved you. And I just always thought that was cool, because we all love to go to a fancy restaurant, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of suffering going on, right? The people are working really hard. Sometimes they're not making the best wages. They may be getting yelled at by to get the food out faster, because we watching these reality shows on TV with, I don't want to throw any specific names out there, but the kitchen shows, right, where people are getting yelled at. And man, it's tough. And in college, I was an assistant server, so I know it's tough. And I just thought that was a really good comparison in that message that I heard. So I thought that was really cool. And I've also heard really great messages in our church as well, in our local church, International Church of Christ. So I've heard some really great messages there as well. But yeah, to serve, right? To be serving, right? To wash the feet of others. And it is much more difficult sometimes to be served than it is to serve. Just depends on the situation. But thank you very much for joining me today on The Chosen and Beyond. Please watch The Chosen at thechosen.tv. The links will be in the description and with the gift store and all that stuff. So I'm trying to support The Chosen as much as I can, because I want them to be able to continue to deliver these great episodes. I'm wrapping up season 5, one more episode to go. Then I probably will do a few other smaller reviews of some movies that I really like before I go back to finish wrapping up season 3, because I need to finish those reviews on some of those episodes I didn't get to do. But thank you very much for joining with us. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and a subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much. See you soon.